Yogini_dialogues_existence_flvr_2.3_ Dr._Sundari applied Meta-Physicist Yogini_dialogues_existence FLVR _2.3_ Collected Dialogues and Monologues, Dr. Sundari. Aligned International Edition, curated without reduction. Prepared for publication. Original content preserved. Spelling and punctuation lightly corrected. Audio file name. Dr. Sundari applied Meta-Physicist Yogini Dialogues Existence FLVR 2.2. Disclaimer. This recording shares personal experiences and observations of deep meditation. It is not medical or therapeutic advice and is not a recommendation to practice. Listeners should exercise personal consent and professional guidance where appropriate. In my open eye meditation, I discovered that a hidden part of me was speaking through the body, an inner, subconscious presence whose existence I had not known. It did not speak in ordinary words. It spoke in micro-movements. A shift of breath, a tiny tightening behind the ribs, a quiet insistence at the base of my skull. At first I thought it was imagination. Slowly I learned its grammar and began to listen. As I listened, my awareness widened and deepened. I began to decode ever deeper meanings of existence. Not as propositions to be proved but as lived probabilities. The likely contours of my growth, the soft trajectories of attention, the places where habit loosens and choice appears. Each session opened a new corridor of insight about who I am, how my life moves, and what my possible evolutions might be. My awareness sharpened until I could hold my existence in something like a binary clarity. I began to read myself in twos: presence, absence, move, stillness, attract, release. In that binary field, questions that once felt vague acquired a strange crispness. I asked, silently, experimentally, how long it would take for me to move from point A to point B. The answer that came was not meters and minutes but a felt physics. I perceived myself as mass in motion, my being moving through space where gravity and magnetism converse with velocity and acceleration. I understood that the measure of my journey is not only external distance but a relationship between forces. How fast my attention moves, how strongly old patterns pull, how new possibilities magnetize me. A further clarity arrived. The distance from A to B is not merely the length between two geolocations. It is the interval between two spheres, two separate realities. One sphere contains my present arrangement of beliefs, habits, posture. The other contains a possible embodiment I have not yet become. To travel, I must traverse the space between these spheres, negotiating shifts in internal gravity, the pull of what I already know, and changes in magnetic attraction, what draws me forward. When I traveled in a car, this insight became practical and immediate. As the vehicle gathered speed and I chose a direction, I felt my reality subtly change. The physical speed of the motor vehicle and the chosen direction acted like levers. By moving through external coordinates, I shifted internal topology. Crossing from a small colony into a large metro, I experienced a reconfiguration of attention, social field, and possibility. My inner landscape rearranged in sympathy with the external motion. I realized then that locomotion and direction together can change the felt quality of my existence. Speed alters momentum in my inner field. Direction chooses which attractor I approach. So my travel was not merely geographic, it was a way of negotiating realities. With each change of speed and turn of the wheel, I negotiated resistance, recalibrated my attention, and stepped closer to a different sphere of being. In my open-eye meditations, I discovered a part of me that had been quietly speaking through my body, an inner, subconscious presence whose existence I had never fully noticed. It did not speak in ordinary sentences. It spoke in micro-movements. A lift of the breath, a small easing behind the ribs, a soft insistence at the base of my skull. At first I mistook it for imagination. Slowly I learned its grammar and began to listen. As I listened, my awareness widened. I began to decode ever deeper layers of meaning about existence itself. Not as propositions to be argued, but as lived probabilities. The shapes and likely trajectories of my becoming. Each sitting opened another corridor of insight about who I am, how my life moves, and what my possible evolutions might be. My awareness sharpened to a kind of binary clarity. I began to read myself in simple pairs: presence, absence, movement, stillness, attract, release. In that two-tone field, questions that once felt vague acquired a crisp, testable quality. I would ask, silently and experimentally, how long will it take for me to move from point A to point B? The answers came not in meters and minutes but as a felt physics. I perceived myself as a mass in motion, an embodied weight traveling through a field where gravity and magnetism converse with velocity and acceleration. The measure of my journey was not only external distance but the relationship of forces. How fast my attention moves, how strongly old patterns pull, how new possibilities magnetize me. Distance, I learned, is not merely a geolocation. It is the interval between two spheres, two separate realities. One sphere holds my present arrangement of beliefs, habits, posture. The other holds a possibility of embodiment I have not yet become. To travel, I must traverse the space between these spheres, negotiating shifts in internal gravity, the pull of what I already know, and changes in magnetic attraction, what draws me forward. A practical moment made this clear. Riding in a car, watching the world change outside the window, I felt my reality subtly shift. The vehicle's speed and the chosen direction became levers of transformation. By changing locomotion and direction I could alter the felt topology of my inner world. Moving from a small colony into a large metro, my social field, attention, and possibilities rearranged themselves. My inner landscape responded in sympathy with the external motion. Speed altered my inner momentum. Direction chose which attractor I approached. Locomotion and direction together reformed my reality. Then I found a way to travel without physically moving. I discovered that the same mechanics apply to attention. I could use mental velocity and focused direction to reach a different existence from point A to point B instead of relying on the road. I trained my focus toward a mirror. With my eyes reflected, I supercharged my concentration. The sight of my own gaze amplified acceleration in my subconscious. That reflected focus supplied the momentum my inner field needed. In the mirror, attention becomes thrust. In the attention, momentum grows. And in that momentum the subconscious reconfigures the space between spheres. So now I measure journeys not only by clocks and maps but by the changing density of my inner field. How much resistance I carry, how swiftly my attention accelerates, and how strongly I am magnetized toward the new. The path from A to B becomes a lived geometry of becoming, an interplay of spheres, forces, velocities, and the quiet grammar of the subconscious that, when honored, guides my movement through worlds. End of curated edition, content preserved, structure enhanced, _. Thanks for listening. This audio dialogue will end here now.